Hi, guys, and welcome to yet another episode of eChats with the energetic EJ. Okay, so you're welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you for all the subscription. Thank you for all the love. Thank you so much for the comments, for the shares. I do really appreciate you. If this is your first time on my channel, what are you waiting for? Come on, click on the subscribe button and also turn on your notifications so that you know whenever my videos drop. Okay, I'm so happy to have you here. If you don't already know, eChat is basically a platform where I get to speak to people, or would you say interview people with stories that are inspiring. So the aim is to inspire you, is to inspire me, to remind us that your dream, my dream is valid and we are enough. Okay, so thank you for sticking around all along. So today on the show, I have a writer in the house. Okay, so I first of all know her as an editor, all right? But now she just authored her book. Yes, I'm going to be talking about that book today. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the talk. Catch you in a minute. All right, guys, welcome back to this episode of eChat. Yes, as you can see already, my guest is here. Let me just read a short bio of my guest. So her name is Pamela Agboga. She's a writer, a speaker, a content creator, and social media manager. When she's not training, playing story god, or creating campaigns, she loves listening to music, reading, and watching movie. And by the way, she's also a mom, a fantastic one at that. So welcome, Pamela.
Hello.
Hi, how are you? So good to see you, sis.
It's nice to see you too. Okay, you're hearing me?
Yes,
I
I
can.
can hear you.
Okay, good. We're ready to start. So it's nice to see everybody. As she said, I'm a writer and I'm a mom. Yes.
Well done. So good to have you here. Thank you for coming on my
Thank
show.
you.
So, yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So eChat is basically where we get to share our inspiring stories. So, but in the process of sharing as well, we also like to learn from your experiences. Okay. So, like we already said, I said
Yeah.
I know you first as an editor. So,
Yes.
have you always known that you were going to be a writer? So, like, of course, I think you should be there somewhere, but I just want to find out again. Have you always known at the back of your mind that someday I'm going to author one?
Yes. It writing came naturally, and writing was what I started with because I started at a very young age. So by the time I was like 8, I was already doing the ones where you draw like comics. Let's call it comics, but I didn't think of it like that. I was just writing stories. So you draw the characters and do the bubbles, and I was doing that. And it was by secondary school I started writing without pictures. Writing stories, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. I never finished anything, but I was happy that I finally met friends who were writing like me. So I wasn't so weird or unusual. It was now something that, oh, yes, people were doing, and it's not. But still, I wasn't finishing anything.
Why did you think so? Why do you think that was? Like, why do you think you weren't able to finish anything?
I found out that a lot of writers are procrastinators, and a lot of writers are perfectionists. So you're writing, you get to a point, and you feel, man, this thing is not, maybe it's not that good. So I'll come back later, and that's how the thing it goes out. So sometimes you have a great story, and you're like, I want to write. What do I do next in the story? And also lack of planning. We were just writing. I didn't have a plan. I just knew that, oh, this is a story, and I start writing without planning. So writing without a plan is like planning to not finish or not do something great. Yes.
So at what point did this change for you? Like, at what point did you not realize, if I'm going to take this thing seriously, I have to put some structure to it?
There are some things you lock into. So I locked into finding out that I needed structure. I just thought writers write. So you just start writing and you get there. Then I found some sites, blogs about writing. So I started reading, started following. So there was a particular lady, Holly Lyle. What she used to give out was chapters of her story, and alongside that, she used to do other like free trainings. She used to give out free information. These are things you can do as a writer. This. So one of the things she gave out was like a how to plot your story articles. I think a series. So I took them, I printed them out, I made it into like a book, and then I read what she said, and that was how I finished a book for the first time.
Nice.
So that's how I found my way.
Okay, so that first book that you finished, did you publish it, or it was just something that you knew, okay, this is something I've done?
Interestingly, that is Weekends Are for Loving.
Oh,
That is it.
nice, 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 nice.
Yes, the first full-length novel that I finished.
Wow. Oh my God,
Yes, that
guys.
was it.
I have a copy of this book and I've started reading it, and it is wow. Pamela, you are such a great writer. I love the way you describe. Tell me your secret. Like, how did you come to that? Because I feel like as I was reading it, I just felt like, number one, I know you just said now that you started reading a lot, and so how did you come about your style of writing? It's fantastic.
Okay, yes. Your writing style, it comes with repeated use. As in, when you keep writing, you find out that there's this way you do it that is beautiful. It's easy for you. It flows for you. And then it's the confidence to say, oh yes, this works for me. Let me keep at it. Because the fear is now that maybe it's only me that likes it. Other people might not like it. Maybe it's only like 50 people out of 1 million people in the world that will understand my writing. But one thing that happened was I read other people's writings, and I saw some writings that I would never write like this, right? But then I saw reviews and people loved it. And then there were writings that, wow. And there was one, I was talking to someone one day, and there was a book I read, and I dropped the book and I felt like crying for myself because it was so beautiful. Like, which day will I write like this, So you will see writers that have written, as in you're like, oh my God, when will I meet this author? As in, like, you are moved by the person's writing style, not even just the story, because the story is a story that you've heard like 1 million times, but the way this person gave the story, it moved you. And I stopped writing for like 2 months because of that book.
Wow.
But you see, you cannot. Yes, it was that strong. But you look at it again and you realize it was just the person just wrote what the person had. And if I don't write, I'll never get anywhere close to what that person has. And one wonderful thing about writing is somehow, somewhere, as long as you keep practicing and as you're getting better at your writing, there are people who just prefer your style of writing.
True.
Some people like highfalutin writing. Some people just like simple writing, which is why a newspaper will always sell. I mean, people just want the information sometimes. We don't care how, it's just basic information. The minister said this and this one said this. They just want the information. But some people want to take a stroll down memory lane, want, something, flowery, good. So there's the first thing I had to learn was there's always a market. There's somebody waiting for you. If you don't write, you will never meet that person. Yes. So that's just what made me keep and then build the style that I have. And that's what will help anybody build the style that they have. Yes.
Just keep writing it and just know what works for you and stick to it.
And build it.
You will. I like the fact that you shared that you felt paralyzed after reading somebody else's book. Like, what is this?
It was that bad.
I call myself a writer? But I like that you also said it took 2 months for you to recover from that. That is to say, it's fine. That is to say that it is okay. It is okay to stumble. It is okay to freeze sometimes. But I want to believe that one of the things that made you come out of that is because you just know it, that this is what I really want to do. I really want to write this thing. And if I don't do it, then nobody else will do it for me. So what would you say is your why?
You'll do it, yes.
What's that thing that keeps you going?
Why do I write? Okay, what keeps me going is, well, first of all, that understanding that there's always someone, waiting for your story. There's someone who needs to hear your story. And another thing is, you are given a gift for a reason. And sometimes I tell myself, this might be your one talent. And it's easy to criticize. Okay, this is drawing from that parable of the talents. There was one giving 10, there was one giving 5, there was one giving 1. And the one that was giving 1 just dug a hole and put his 1. And you and I will sit down and judge that person.
Very true.
But then we might be the person with the 1, as in assuming you were the one with 1. Let me give an explanation. When I started, when I joined the choir, first of all, I couldn't sing, so I had to practice. And then after a while, they said, "Oh, your voice is better because you were practicing." And I realized, really, actually, your voice can improve with practice. It's not just talk; it's true. And then I said, okay, I could only sing treble, and I wanted to sing alto and tenor, because those are the classy parts. Treble is just bass line.
Anybody can sing treble.
Anybody can sing treble, like it's bass line. And he was much younger. He was a teenager, and I was already maybe mid to late 20s. But he was a keyboardist, and he was great. So he stood one day and he said, Sister Pamela, it's better to be a great treble than to be struggling with every single part.
Wow.
Like, if this is what God gave you, why don't you make yourself the best?
It well.
Thank you.
Wow.
This is your one talent. There are others that are singing like 2-3 parts. That's their own talent, but use your own well and do it. So when I went to writing, it was that same inspiration.
Wow.
Perhaps God has given me just this one writing talent, and that's it. I mean, I'm not good at sports. I'm not good at so many things, but I'm good at writing, and that's your one talent. Why don't you build it? And build that one talent? You find out at some point that God, like, okay, add another one, and then gives you something else to go with it.
Yeah.
So you have to build that one first.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. I like that. I like that. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so I know that with all writers, because if I'm going to interview a million writers, I'm still going to ask this one question. There is that point in time where all of you cry, writer's block. Someday I'm going to be an author too. So, but how do you do it?
Writer's block comes sometimes because we don't plot, or we didn't plot well. It is a plotting problem, essentially, from what I have learned. Let me say for me, because someone might say, oh no, blah, blah, blah. So let's say for some of us, then maybe that person can cover those of them that actually plotted and are still having writer's block. Okay? Because I'm also a lawyer. So in law, they always say that every rule, there will definitely be an exception. So I can't make blanket statements. Now that will cover the entire world. But for most people, the problem with getting writer's block is with plotting. And plotting essentially is running your story from beginning to end. Like, why I hadn't been finishing my stories is because I won't run it from beginning to end. I would just know we're going to start in the forest, So I now start in the forest, and I'm like, okay, now, so from here, where do we go in this? Like, you get lost in your forest. It was a great starting. You had a nice chapter 1, this is our meeting point. This is where we meet our protagonist. You had all that, but then you didn't have the journey. You didn't have where it's going to end.
Yeah.
Thank you. But I found out that the minute I plotted, this is what I'm going to do here, this is what I'm going to do here, this is what I'm going to do here. So the final details come out as you are writing. And sometimes when you're writing, you realize, man, this is not realistic. There's no way my character, who is 4'3", is going to jump a fence that is this high at the end, like a fence like the one in this movie, Divergent. You're going to have challenges for the height alone. So you're like, okay, this doesn't work. So that means that maybe I should give the person a tall friend, or a friend who will help him. Good. So that means you have to go back now and add in a friend and pull that friend's story along. So is it just for this fence? What else is this friend going to be doing in this story? How relevant do I make this friend? So that is the plotting. So if you've plotted all that, and you started your story. You see, I started the story with this person, and I know that this person will leave the kingdom. Then I now build the kingdom and build such high walls. Then I got there. I go back again and then start adding in people that will need, will help the story and move the story forward. The main reason why people get stuck with writer's block is because writing is rewriting. You see, I've written a story up to a point, and I have to go back again. Writing is actually rewriting. And many of us are lazy, like me especially. A lot of times I tell, as an editor, I read somebody's work and I'm like, oh, you have to go and change this, you have to go and work on this. And then I go like, they're not coming back. You're like, writers are lazy. They might not come back. So I'm really impressed when I send somebody back and the person comes back and the person has done all the work
that you said.
Even if it takes 6 months, even if it takes him, I'm like, well done, you are a writer and you are ready. Yes, because writing is rewriting. Very few times, there's only one author that is able to write a first draft that can go straight to editing. Oh, that as in one popular author. There are others, but they are few. And that's because of the preparation they have already made before they wrote the first word. So all the backstory they have gone through, all the revisions, all the sounding against their friends, like, what do you think of this? Before they even start writing. So the plotting, the preparation, if you do that like 100%, it's going to be very hard for me to be writing, get to chapter 5 and say, I don't know what to write. Because in my plotting, I've already put it there that she's going to meet the king of so and so. He's going to go for somebody's going to betray her here. You've already said that out. So true. The plotting helps you with
writer's block.
Healing writer's block, yes. But if you still get blocked, because it happens,
yes.
If you still get blocked, one of the things that we do is we drop the book. We drop it, you drop the story and take a break. Sometimes it's because you are thinking so much, and at times it's your mind knowing that something is wrong, but you've been pushing the story because you just want to reach the end. So sometimes you get stuck and you're like, I don't know what to write. So a lot of times with writer's block, when you stop, you go and gist. Like me now, sometimes I take the story to somebody else and give the person. And a lot of times your friends are the ones that see, why would you, when they're like, and you're like, true, this character cannot do this. Sometimes it's because you're forcing the character to do something that is not in the character's makeup.
Okay.
It's true. Why would this character do this and all that? And then sometimes you're forcing a character to be a bad guy when the character has not been following that route. You want to twist the story, but good, and then it's not realistic. So your subconscious is your subconscious is rejecting it, like, God forbid, no, this cannot happen. So you are fighting yourself. And then you're like, so taking a break is very good. Throwing out the story, and a lot of writers are afraid that somebody will steal
exactly.
If two people write the same story, it will never be the same. If two people, unless they are stealing your script like this and running to print, that's when you will see the story exactly the same. And you find movies that come out, they are very similar. Let me try and remember. There are movies, they come out the same year and they're almost the same, but they're from since one is from Disney, one is from Disney and the other is from maybe Nickelodeon or something. They are almost similar, but they are completely different at the end of the day. So there's that. There are people get the same idea and everybody runs with it. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. You can ask questions. You can talk to people. And it's good to have your network of friends that you trust. And you run your gist by them.
Really
Thank you.
And that means
run your gist by them,
like the Bible says that if somebody wants to be a friend, you also have to make yourself friendly. So you have to be somebody who is trustworthy enough for people to also,
yes,
trustworthy with your ideas.
Bounce ideas off you.
Yes. I really think it's important, building relationships. So being a writer is not just about you being good with what you write. You should have your small circle of people that you can trust, when friends, you say you can trust, people that can tell you something and you actually consider it, not people that you can always brush off to say, please, what do you know? Are you a writer?
What's this one saying? Yes,
exactly.
Yes. Okay, on that issue, writers have that problem. What I was saying about taking advice is that writers are proud people, and their pride is justified in that they created from within themselves and brought as in they suffered to create these things. So when you come and they're like, this doesn't work, this whole chapter is irrelevant, you feel like, but it really hurts their feelings because they're like, my sweat and blood, my hours put in for this. But being able to take advice and say, like when I submitted my manuscript to my friends and they were just slashing and hacking, I
Breathe.
just nodded and I was like, okay, and they were busy writing notes at the bottom. I was like, ugh. Then I was like, okay, leave the book, come back next week, and then check what they were saying objectively. So I went through objectively, and yes, 80% of what they said was correct. So beyond that, I still went to ask them, okay, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And the person like, okay, yeah, it's true, that works, and I know you can actually do without, or you can, So I smoothed it out, and then I had to do it again after a while, and this one was like, okay, no, this can't work, and I'm like, when are we going to, when is it going to be over? But the more you let people critique, the more you take their criticism objectively. Don't go subjective like, it's because they have never written in their life, that's why they don't know the pain that like it's the upset, the vex is natural. The upset is natural, so we understand. So just take it, get angry,
And
then calm down, and yes, try again
exactly.
objectively.
I like that fact that you said, when at the heat of the moment where you're getting the criticism, just don't take action at that time. Don't edit. Don't look at what they're saying right there and right. Just give it some time and then go back with a mindset that, what, I'm going to look at this, like, let's even say this is a top person critiquing this, so let me look at it objectively so that I can get the best out of it. And that's a very great way of taking criticism, so that you don't get hurt and you're not overly attached to what people say.
To the word,
take what is good and what applies, and the other one you can discard. So fantastic. Thank you so much.
Bear in mind that person is your reader. You write for your reader, you don't write for yourself. So you wrote a perfect book for you, but now you have to edit it to accommodate your readers. So unless you are sure that person is not who you are writing for.
Exactly. What if, let's say you are writing a sci-fi, sci-fi story, and this person you are giving the book to critique has no idea about sci-fi? How do you reconcile, whatever the person is saying? Because the person is not even exposed to that sort of writing or imagination and things like that. So how would you now?
All right. So if I'm writing a niche book and I want to give it to someone who has no interest, to understanding of that, and then let the person read. Also, you're still going to go through the book and look at it objectively, saying this is a layman who might just want to start coming into, as in like, I've never read fantasy, I want to start reading fantasy. How easy is it going to be for that person to break in using my novel?
Wow.
Good. So I might need to put in a little more description that core core fantasy readers will not need, because they've read like 1 million, they understand the world. Okay, now so there's someone coming and the person like, I've never seen it. There are some things that you cannot help. These are fantasy stuff. I can't help this. But there are some things that like I can help you by breaking a few things down for your understanding.
But when you
so it also depends.
Won't that affect your core audience who are already, say, into fantasy? Because they'll be like, why is this person?
Why are you explaining?
Like, we know.
Why are you explaining this?
How do you find the balance?
So you can't do it too much. That's the thing. You just have to bend a little if you feel that I want people who are breaking in, first time fantasy readers. Some people don't care. First time fantasy readers, this is not for you. But there are some books that like will care a little to integrate. Yes, include them.
So that means, of course, it's not going to. Yeah, that means you have to also have your audience in mind when you are writing.
Yes.
So that also influences how you write or how you explain things.
Yes. And that's one thing that I agreed when I wrote the first book. I did have an audience in mind, but it wasn't as now it's understanding. You understand? Like I said, I locked into so much. So it was just the grace of God that things fell. But a lot of things I did without understanding. But because I had been reading, this is the way writers have been doing it. I don't know why. I just did it that way. So with studying on writing and oh, this is why we do this. Oh, this is why we do that. Thank God I did it too. But I didn't do it with understanding. Thank you. So this knowing your audience is key. Yes, knowing your audience is key to starting. Before you start writing, you should know who you are writing
for.
Yes, and it's important. They keep saying a book for everybody is not a book. As in, it's a book for nobody. Everybody, my audience is everybody young, old, big or small. No, there are books for different ages. There are books for different types of learners. There are books for, as in, everything has segmentation in writing.
Exactly.
There's fiction, there's non-fiction. There are some people that they've been writing for years, but they don't know the distinction between fiction and non-fiction. As basic as that is. But they've been writing. I've edited for people who write poetry, but they've never had a lesson on literature or poetry. And I'm like, this year iambic, whatever. And they're like, huh? And they say, are you obeying the metric? So I'm like, sorry, how did you now start writing poetry? I just took paper and I started. I'm like,
wow,
yes,
well done.
We are looking for. There are some people that are natural, but they like we are doing it, we don't know why. We are following rhyme and rhythm, we don't know what we are doing, but we're just doing it because this is how it is done.
Yeah.
Why? We don't know. Yes. So the science behind the arts, we don't know.
So
but
do you now advocate for at least as a writer, knowing the science behind the arts is quite important?
Yes,
because it kind of sets you apart.
Yes, it's very important. Because one thing I also noticed was the same way within writing, there are different rules and segmentation in writing. So I started out writing stories, fiction. Then when I started working, I had to start writing articles, posts, non-fiction for companies and all that. And I realized there's a different part there. Yes. Then I moved into writing for television, dramas. There's a different part there. Then I said, okay, I went into my writing for movie scripts. It's not the same thing as television writing. So even within, you must study. And a friend of mine that was helping said, see, you have to take training. You have to learn. If not, you will not understand. First, you have to understand the craft to be able to do the right thing at the right. And then when someone tells you, I liked your first book, I didn't like your second book. And in your mind, they're like, but I did the same thing twice. You understand? But you don't understand the distinction between what you did the first time and the second time. Because maybe the first time you wrote fantasy and the second time you wrote Christian romance. Contemporary Christian. It's not the same. Rules genre. Are different. And then saying I'm writing romance and saying I'm writing an action adventure, different rules apply. So if you don't study, if you don't know, these were things that yes, I had to study to understand. Because to me it was just write novel. Write fiction is write fiction. But there are segmentations, there are distinctions, yes, there are. And that's what makes the difference between I like this book, it was great, and me, I don't know what this person was doing. They say that's when you hear phrases like the writer was all over the place. Like, the writing was all over the place.
Just everywhere.
So the person is writing, yes, the person is writing, but does not understand. Thank you.
So let's talk about weekend. Weekend is for
weekends are for loving.
Weekend is for.
I don't know why.
Are for loving. Why? How did you
backwards? I don't know why. When you put you see, the writing is backwards, right?
No, I'm seeing mirrored. It as it is. It's not mirrored on my.
Are you serious?
On my side, yes.
Okay, thank goodness.
Weekends,
because I hate that.
Are for loving. So
yes, weekends are for loving.
How did you come about this title, the story plotting? I like it. I'm already loving it. I'm at the point where the plot is about to change. And I'm like, hey.
So, the afterword tells a bit about how I started. Like, okay, at the end, when you get to the end, it's the afterword.
Okay.
So the year was 2012. No, the year was 2013. And I signed up for, see, I'm going to tell you another reason why I finished that book. So there's this thing they do every November. Is NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month. It happens in November. And you're supposed to write a novel within 30 days. So I had an idea I'd been playing with, but then I was like, see, I think I tried for like 3 years or 2 years prior, and I kept missing the date. So this year, I used that lady's Cornelius plotting. So I plotted out a story, and I had finished plotting out the story. I'm like, I'm going to write this story. So the basic elements I pulled into the story was, one, I'd learned that you write what you know. So I knew what happened that year. So I pulled facts that happened that year and then fictionalized a lot of it. And then, the story I wanted to write, merged it with that. And yes, created it. So now here came the problem now. Unfortunately, I titled the book before I gave my friends to read. And I'm like, I don't think this title is strong enough. Give me a title. And they're like, yeah, that's the title now. Weekends are for loving. And I was like, yes, I know I titled it. And I titled it even before I had gone halfway. Now I've got to the end. Let's check it. They're like, no, weekends are for loving. As in, that's what's in their head. That is the name. And that shall it be. And I was like, okay, fine. Thank you for all your help. Not, but okay. So that was how the name stuck. But the main point was, most of the activities that this couple were getting into were happening at the weekends.
Okay.
Yes. So, and it's not very obvious, but it's just there in the story. So someone will read to the end and be like, I just see the weekends are for loving. Where are the weekends? But I'm like, see, just read and enjoy. Leave my story title alone. But that's the title, and it's all there, but I don't know why nobody notices the dates and the timings. So another thing that happened was when it went through editing. When it went through editing, my editor was like, no, you don't have to date it. Just remove the dates, because normally I dated every chapter. And she was like, if you remove the dates, the chapters still work. So I was okay, tried removing them and everything was fine. So I left it. So it's not so obvious anymore. But
that it was based on a true life story or merged.
No. It's not obvious that most of the activities happened at the weekends.
Okay.
Hence the title. So when you get to the end, they're like, where's the title? And I'm like, I'm not changing it. That's the title. That's it right there. And funny enough, it's a title that sticks, and people like using it to play, as in it lends itself to what they call now, fun and games, memes and other stuff. So yeah, it's cool. I leave it like that. Yes.
Nice. Yes. I like the story.
That's why
I like the story. Like you said. Okay, so now that you said that the year that some of the plots now
events, yes,
some of the events actually happened.
Yes.
So does this mean that you lived in? Did you live in Warri? Like, cause your picture was lit.
Okay, yeah, like I said, write what you know. So I haven't traveled so much. Places I have been to. I grew up in Delta State. I actually did not grow up in Warri. I grew up in Saple, Delta State. And I went to Warri. What part of Saple? Ubei.
Oh, okay. Because I'm from Ogara, so like,
yes, it's nearby. Yes, it's nearby. So I just spent some weeks in Warri. When when you do your law, you do attachment. So I did my attachments in Warri, court and chamber attachment. But it was fun. It was very interesting, going on all the roads, and so I was like, okay. And I wanted to write a story that integrated as many parts of Nigeria as possible. So I grew up in Saple, and then I did my attachment in Warri, and I went to school in Benin. But I looked at it and I said, let me not put that in, but I can reference it. I can, yes. And then when I started working, I came to Lagos. So definitely Lagos was going to enter this story somehow. But I didn't want Lagos to be the beginning or the central point. Yes.
Nice.
So it was the major point. It was where most of the activities happened. But I wanted to move. I wanted the story to move so people could experience other parts of Nigeria.
Yeah, that was really
I wish I had gone to the north, maybe I could have done something
But
and
they're
come
in there
from there.
somewhere.
Yes,
But I just
because
really love the way you describe things. Like, you created mental pictures, Like when
yeah.
we were talking about Mrs. Alade's office, like I could already imagine seeing flower pots everywhere.
Everywhere.
I could imagine the way Tobore's office is, their cubicle, and how Dennis will
Yes.
keep, and it's just amazing. Well done.
Yes, yes, yes,
I really can't
yes.
wait to see what happens. I really
Yeah.
can't wait to read about what happened to Tobore, what changed her mindset, what she's
Yes,
struggling
yes.
with, and all of that. Fantastic story you have written. And
Yes, thank you.
how can we get this book if we want to get a copy of it?
Okay, there are two ways. One, on my handles, Instagram, Facebook handles, the links are there to
Okay.
get a copy of that's the print copy. Print copy is what's available now.
Okay,
But
so
then
no
if
e-copy.
people want the e-copies, they have to request directly and say,
Okay.
okay, please, I want the e-copy, yes. But
Okay.
the print copies are what are available. And then by God's grace, it will soon be on Roving Heights. Yes.
Congratulations.
So when the link is available, I'm also going to put that out on all my handles as well. Yes. So
Okay.
then my handles for Instagram, Pamela Agboga, at Pamela Agboga.
Okay.
For Twitter, that's Pam Agboga.
Okay.
And for Facebook, Pamela C. Agboga.
Okay.
Yeah. So Pamela Agboga on Instagram and Facebook. Yes.
All right.
Then
So
Pam
good
Agboga
connect.
on Twitter.
All right, guys. So connect with Pamela. Order a copy of the book. Are you okay to
Yes.
say how much the book is?
Yes, yes. The print copy is 4.5.
Okay.
Then the ebook copy is 1.5.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
So,
print
but the
copy is
ebook copy,
4.5.
you have to connect with her directly
Directly,
via our
yes.
channels to get it directly from her.
Yes.
But if you want the print copy, then you can use the link on our bio
Yes.
across social
Yes.
media to get a copy.
Yes, and then Roving Heights as well. I shall include that once it is ready on all the links and all the areas.
No problem
Yes.
at all. It's quite a fantastic story, I tell you guys. I started reading it and I'm enjoying it. Pamela is such a vivid descriptor. Like it's just so good. I was like, wow, I was just laughing to myself. At some point I was laughing and then I had some what's that word now? When you mentioned some old school what's it called now? It's fine. When you mentioned some old school cartoons and stuff like that, I was like, wow, it just like brought back memories for me. Like, where did this man go and dig all these things from? So yeah, thank you so much for coming on board today. I really, really appreciate it. So if you were going to drop a word, like a final word for whoever is watching this, maybe a writer, a new writer who is starting off and who has been trying to, what's it called now? Trying to complete a work and they've not been able to, what would you say to them?
Okay, what I would say to someone who has been struggling with completing something, as in one thing is try a shorter story. The full length novel, try a shorter story. Sometimes writing short articles help you feel like you've accomplished something. So write a short article or write a short story, complete it, and then continue with, and then plot. Make sure you've plotted and discussed, you've gone through, you've walked through the story from beginning to end before you start your chapter 1. You've broken down your chapters. This is what will be here, this will be here. It will help you, clear your writer's block or push through. Whenever you hit a wall, it'll be easier. And don't be afraid to bounce off ideas. Don't be afraid to ask, what do you think? Hypothetically speaking, what do you think if this? Don't be afraid to ask questions and get it, because you're going to be writing about characters that must be real and believable. So don't be afraid to, ask people questions and find out, because your character definitely is not always going to be like you. So that's it.
So you need to pick other people's brain to know how other people think as well. Thank you so much for being on the show today, guys. I hope that this episode has been, amazing for you, has been valuable. Please Follow us across social media. My name is Ejiro Sakede. You can follow me on social media. Also, the links to our social media handles will be in the comment section or in the description of this video. So thank you. Click on the subscribe button if you are yet to. If you are not yet, what am I saying? If you are yet to, if you are yet to subscribe, click on the subscribe button, turn on notification button so that you can get my video once they drop. Until I come here again with another guest, this is me saying bye.